kind of a little bit disorganized. I'm going to talk about what's not seen behind me in this room. It can get a little messy. It can get a little bit cluttered. That's the word, cluttered. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks, and I haven't filmed anything. I haven't had much to say. Actually, I always have a lot to say, but I got a job. Praise the Lord. Remember last video? Fear. I got a job. The Lord is good, and the Lord has provided. Yeah, so I've been busy, really just busy with my job. And actually this video is going to be very related to the fact that that's kind of all I've been doing, and the fact that I want to do so many more things, but the topic of this video is kind of what has stopped me from doing some of those things. But today I kind of just want to talk about the mental state that a lot of times we can find ourselves in, and the way that that mental state can often affect our lives so much outwardly. I believe October, I don't know if it was a week or a specific day. I don't claim to know many details, and I want to of course educate myself more, but just I know that it was either like mental health month or week or something along those lines. And I see that in the Christian community, mental health is something that is being talked about a lot more, something that I think used to be and still kind of sometimes is taboo. And I think that there's definitely extremes. There's very high extremes of depression and anxiety, and then there might be some lower extremes, but just in general, mental health is something that's very important and something that isn't often talked about that much. And this video isn't so much about mental health, but it is about how the state of our minds can really affect, like I said before, the way that it can physically manifest itself outwardly. For the last couple months, I'm gonna put myself on Front Street in this video and talk about myself. I'm kind of a messy person, kind of a little bit disorganized. I'm gonna talk about what's not seen behind me in this room. It can get a little messy. It can get a little bit cluttered. That's the word, cluttered, a lot of times. Something that I've realized is that I've for years wanted to be very introspective and kind of pay attention to what's going on inside of me. And I've realized that the state of my outward clutterness, messiness, is a lot of times reflected on what's going on inside of me, inside of my mind. And just like in preparation and just kind of studying on my own for this video and just in general, I was doing a little bit of research about the connection between clutter and stress and anxiety and depression and that kind of thing. And some of the things that I found was that there are studies that prove that there is a link and a connection between depression and anxiety or stress and clutter, and how clutter can actually ignite stress or spark stress. But I kind of more want to focus on the opposite of that, how what's going on inside of us mentally is what ends up causing the outward manifestation of disorganization and that kind of stuff. And like I said, the things around us a lot of times are a physical representation of what's going on inside of us. And when we talk about like clutter or disorganization, a lot of times it can play a significant role in our own personal lives, in our homes, in our workspaces, in our cars. But just from a personal standpoint, I realized that what we're feeling inside of us a lot of times can be what's manifesting outside. Whether it's the confusion, the turmoil, the stress, the anxiety, the sadness that we feel inside of us, that can be what's manifesting itself outward. And so if our minds are messy, if our minds are cluttered, if our minds, if we're overwhelmed with so many things, that can easily actually ooze out. That can actually physically start to be seen outside. And sometimes the turmoil, the stress, the confusion, the overwhelmingness, it can overpower us, and it makes us not want, like it's just so much going on in our minds that it literally makes us not want to do anything. It makes us, things start to pile up and things start to, and it's not always, it doesn't always mean that the person is not a responsible person or that they are, not clean or disorganized. It's just sometimes, and I took some courses in psychology in college. I'm not saying that I'm in any way, shape, or form an expert, or that I have any knowledge whatsoever on what certain actions can really mean in someone's mind. But just from personal experience, when I've sat and looked at my life and like what exactly is going on outside of me, I realized like what I'm physically seeing is actually eternally going on in my head. And very recently, I was having a conversation with someone, and we were talking about sometimes we were talking about personally, of course, about me and how I have all these things that I want to do in my mind. There's this YouTube channel, there's this book that I've been saying that I'm going to write for like a year. There's my social media management business that I want to start because that's what I got my master's in. There's my job. Like, there are so many things that I want to focus on, and it's like all these things that I want to do. And I was saying that it's not that I don't have the drive, because obviously I have the drive. I've proven to myself that I have the drive to do things. I've gotten a master's degree, I have a bachelor's degree, I have full-time, like, I'm driven for things. But sometimes the lack of initiative makes me believe the lie that, oh, you also lack drive to do these things. Number one, that's not true. But also the fact that I have all these things in my mind that I want to do and then I don't get them started, then the question of, well, if I'm not doing it, or this never got started, or am I ever going to get started, that doubt starts to set in. And it's like, okay, well, I guess this is just never going to get done, or it didn't get done in the timeline that I gave myself to do it, and so I'm just not going to do it. So then it becomes this perpetual cycle of, I want to do all these things, I have way too many things on my mind that I want to do, and because I don't know where to start with any of them, I just don't do anything. And then you feel bad about yourself because you aren't working towards all these goals that you have. And so it's just like that cycle over and over again. And something that, they said to me, and actually they recommended, and I started listening and reading a book called The One Thing. And it really talks about focusing on one thing. And I know that sounds so mundane and so simple, but in reality, that's what it is. And one of the things that book talks about is that we want to make all these great, huge gestures, or we want to focus on so many things in our life, but really doing that really causes us to just kind of like stand still. And the standstill is what makes us not progress, because we want to do so much, we don't have the time, we don't have the energy, our minds are too overwhelmed to end up doing all these things, and so we end up doing nothing, and then we feel bad about ourselves, and then we just stay stuck. This book and just this conversation is the fact that just focus on one thing, whether it's one thing in your day. Write something down. What is your, don't think so much, what do I want to do this year? I mean, you can definitely think about, what are my goals for this year? What are my goals for this month? But sometimes it just literally comes down to simply saying, what do I want to do today? What do I want to get done today? What is on my list today to do? And once you start checking things off of that list, I feel like that's a way to start organizing ourselves. With me, I want to do all these things, and I feel like such a failure when none of these things get done. But I think that understanding that one of the most successful ways to live this life is just understanding that, number one, we're human. We do all have the same 24 hours in one day. But it's all about perspective, it's all about focus, it's all about priorities. And one thing that I really started thinking about, I think we overwhelm ourselves with wanting to do so many things, because sometimes we prioritize things that maybe shouldn't be first on our list because we want to do so much. One of the things that was said in that conversation, and then it's actually very ironic that I saw Todd Galbraith, which, if you don't know who he is, he's a gospel singer. He posted something this morning on Instagram where he said he didn't want to, it's been one of the most stressful weeks of this year, and he didn't want to, his alarm rang and he didn't want to get up for the day, and it's because he forgot his why. And when you sit down and you think, what is my why? Why do I want to do this? Why, all these things that I have in my mind that are cluttering me and making me overwhelmed, what is my why? And sometimes if you have the wrong why, and the wrong why or the right why, that's dependent on you. Someone can't tell you whether your why is right or not. But whatever is your priority in life, what is your why? Me, why do I want to write the book? Why do I want to continue this YouTube channel? Why do I want to start my own social media management business? Why? Like, what is my why? And I feel like once you figure out or you remember the reasons why God put certain dreams in your heart, or why this one thing that's been in your mind for months, for years, like why it won't leave you alone, remember that reason. And I think that will help you figure out what exactly you need to prioritize first. And once you figure out what to prioritize, then it'll be easier to start taking steps towards getting that done. And with me, I think realizing that all the clutter, all the stuff going on around me, it's just a representation of the fact that in my mind there are so many things going on. And so I guess really the reason for this video is just to help someone and say, refocus, find your why. If you realize that maybe things in your life, like in general, your job, your family, your whatever it might be, if you feel that it's cluttered, if you feel that it's just so much, take a look internally. And I know that that's not always easy, because a lot of times when we have to look internally, that means we're going to find something that we probably don't want to see about ourselves, or something we don't want to admit. Being introspective can be painful. Being introspective can be overwhelming in itself. But try and figure out why am I doing this, or why do I feel like this, or why does everything in my life feel so disorganized? Try to look at yourself, and then once you realize that it could possibly be that there's just something going on inside of you, be proactive in taking steps to try and better that. You know, we talk about self-care and personal care. People always talk about, oh, I'm gonna go to the spa, or I'm gonna get my nails done. Yeah, sure, that's personal care. But personal care is also saying no to things so that you don't overwhelm yourself. Personal and self-care is also setting boundaries. Personal and self-care is also taking a look at yourself and saying, okay, this is no longer serving me. I can't do this. It's being honest with yourself and understanding that your mental health, your happiness, your joy is priority. Make yourself a priority, you know, so just take some time, try and figure out what it is that's going on. With me personally, I bought to maybe help me just get a little bit more organized, or, you know, prioritize. I've always said that my phone is like what helps me. I set reminders all the time, but I felt like I wanted something that is going to help me, you know, that I can maybe write down the things maybe hour by hour in a day, or maybe 2 hours by 2 hours, whatever it might be. So I bought this planner. I got it on Amazon. I can maybe put a link on it on the bottom. It's a normal calendar. It's for the rest of 2019 and for all of 2020, and I think a couple months into 2021. It has the days, and it's like a Christian type planner. You can put a prayer list, you can write your priorities, and then you can literally write down the hours of a day and write down the things that maybe you want to get done. Of course, there's monthly view, there's weekly view. You know, if you start November 2020, goals for the month. I just wanted to find something where I felt like I'm really gonna work, and it says, I think it's Ecclesiastic, says, and it matches my Bible, which of course is cute. Anyways, I'll leave a link to it below if you're interested in something like this, and it's zipper, it's nice, very nice. I really just want to encourage someone today to really take a look inside, and if you feel that there's things going on in your life where you feel like you have a lot of clutter, try to declutter your mind, and just I pray that God really does help you refocus, reprioritize, find your why, and I pray that this blesses you. So
I see that weight up on your shoulder. It's getting hard for you to hold it in. Feel like these nights are getting colder.